Spoiler.
Ready?
Let's get it.
Location and settings.
All right. So we got categories, by the way. So we're gonna touch on location settings.
When the music plays.
When the music plays, we're gonna talk about the music.
Yeah, man.
Talk about some things on temptation.
Yes, sir.
The devil.
Yep.
Voodoo.
Yep.
Superstition.
Yep.
Perspective.
Yep.
And the Bible.
And one mind. One verse hive mind.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Let's get it. Cool. Location and settings. What came out to you about that, man?
The way the film starts, because it's a spoiler review, I'm hitting you with it straight. The way the film starts is rickety car coming down the road, and it's a very eerie environment and setting. And we're in the bayou.
Oh, scary, bro.
Like,
The church spooks me up.
spooky. The car's spooky from the get go. My man steps out, you can see scars on his face and his knowledge, and he's got half a guitar.
Yeah, man.
Spooky. He's moving like stumbling. Spooky. This boy is
Moving like a zombie.
At this point, we don't know this, but this is Sammy. And he just come back from this.
You know what's crazy? At that part, I was wondering, is he a zombie? I mean,
thought
not a
he was
zombie. Is he a vampire?
I thought it was like a zombie vampire.
I thought it was
like,
a vampire, and I was like,
kinda
is he about to eat somebody? He's about to...
Bro, I thought it was gonna get dark.
Bro.
I thought
And so
we go to the wrong place.
When bro was in front of the preacher and it's flashing
Yeah.
between the preacher and I said,
is he about to stab him or something?
I said, yeah. And then the eyes. And because the preacher's eye.
So here,
This is-
the church
Hit me.
is a white building, stereotypical church. I think there's actually a name for that type of church. I forgot what
Is
they're
it?
called. I think there's a name for it.
It just looks like one of them.
But it's stereotypical.
Yeah.
And it's a white building, and everyone in there is dressed in white.
Mm.
We'll get onto that later.
But this is on setting. This is
This is just settings, location.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Just this. But we can also talk about the people inside.
Oh, yeah. Best.
So,
Best.
and in the church is the pastor, who we find out is actually the father of the boy that's just walked inside the church.
Yeah.
And the pastor, talk about how the pastor looked.
Alright, so when we were watching it, yeah, at first my brother was looking at me. He was like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "Yo, look at bro's eyes." I said, "Why are they sparkling like that?" And that sounds like a compliment, but no, bro's eyes were sparkling, something demonic, bro. And this is like 5 minutes in. I said, "Why is pastor's?" So I'm here. I can't. At this point, yeah, I'm like, "Oh, is it one of them films? Are we gonna be looking at, how, demonic the church?" I was like, and it was so clever. Like the church, same church by the way, but the way the church is depicted at the beginning compared to how it's at the end, I think it's reflects it's a metaphor. Right? A metaphor for the audience, because when we enter the film, we enter as it's giving you the opportunity to go on the journey. So if you almost feel like one of the people in the congregation.
Yep.
You're watching bro walk inside the church or scratch up, and you're seeing the pastor, his eyes are glowing. And they film it in such a clever way. The eyes are a big theme in this show, and the eyes are glowing in a certain way. I remember thinking, because I had already got word that the vampire's eyes glow, so I was like, "That's a vampire." But when we return back to that scene at the end, the church is now the place of comfort. After the roller coaster you go on, it's lit differently. The pastor no longer resembles. Also, another thing.
Yeah.
But the first time we get in there, the scene is flashing back and forth. So every time the frame lands on the pastor, it's flashing between the pastor.
Foreshadowing what's about to go down.
Yeah, the pastor and Rimmick, the main vampire.
Yes, it is. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It's flashing between him and it is
horrifying,
bro.
And as a Christian boy, because I don't want to take it, but yeah, as a Christian boy, I know you've been in this situation before. We've been sitting in church. We're also preachers' kids.
Oh yeah.
And we've sat in church and we've seen somebody walk into church and you don't know what they're on.
Yeah, man.
You know what their story is.
Yeah,
and
man.
You kind of get a bit tense. Yeah. Like, what's about to go down?
Yeah. The anxiety, the uncertainty, the tension is.
And then when they walk to the front, you're like, yo, it's good that people come to church, however they are, but it doesn't stop you from feeling a bit like, what's about to go down? What's happening here?
Mm-hmm.
That's the same feeling I had
when
someone walking inside, like, what's about to go down?
And there was this sense of moral ambiguity that doesn't completely leave, but it's like, it's heavy at the beginning. And I think it was just a beautiful way to start the film, kick it off, because you're like, it sets the scene of, because it takes the carpet from underneath you.
Yeah.
Because you kind of come in thinking, okay, this equals good, this equals bad, and the film's like, nah, we more nuanced than that from the get-go. And I said, I'm in.
And just before we get to the next chapter, the church feels, as you mentioned, like the scary place, the dangerous place.
Yes, that's important to note. At this point in the film, the church feels unsafe.
So then the next scene, literally the direct next scene, is him again. So he's working, and he goes back into the church
Yeah.
with his dad, and you still feel that tension of
Yes.
this is a scary place because we just
Yeah.
had that situation, and the dad still feels scary to us.
Exactly, because now that because the dad's telling him, I want you to preach. I want you to, and he's taken his son's guitar and moved it to the platform. He's like,
Yeah.
I've brought it in here because this is where I want you to be. This is where I want you to do whatever you got to do. And the son's like, I want to go and do the blues at the club. And the dad's like, and basically like, as an audience member, they're setting it up as if dad's an op.
Yeah.
Bro just wants to go and live his life and show off his talent. But by the time we swing back round to the end,
Another thing to note:
bro,
this is a Jim Crow era
yeah.
setting.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing him come from a plantation. His family are working on plantations, and so are other families. And then to our other families who aren't working on plantations, but they're working in different fields. He's got cousins,
Mm-hmm.
Smoke and Stack, that'll come back from Chicago, and they were running with Al Capone.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a certain kind of money with them.
Mm-hmm.
I won't go too deep into it right now.
I mean,
So the church,
Chicago versus Mississippi.
yeah, and the church is white. It's interesting what they do with color. The church is
Yeah.
white,
Yeah.
with blue hints around.
Yeah.
The car he arrives in is red.
Red.
Smoke and Stack. Smoke wears blue.
Yeah.
Stack wears red.
Yeah.
There's a part when we can see two shops.
Mm.
The shop with the black people, red.
Red.
The shop with the white people, blue.
And the Asian and the other thing is that
Yeah.
we've got a lot of cultures in the show. An interesting thing that that I know as well, that the Asian couple kind of almost like symbolizing how like often the Asians, they can kind of traverse both worlds.
Passing.
They can pass read for both cultures.
So they go between shops.
Because like there's one Asian family, like one
Yeah.
I want to say like East Asian, like that could have been like,
So their names are Grace and the husband's
I
name.
forgot his name, but basically
Yeah.
it also dawned on me, I never heard like Asian person with that southern.
He doesn't watch enough Southern films. There's one that came out. In fact, no, bro, This Is Us. In This Is Us, his grandma's from Vietnam. Oh, no, his mom's from his.
Did you have the
stepmom's
accent though?
from Vietnam.
That southern accent.
Yeah.
Ah, fair enough. I just lost. I forgot about that. But anyway, like, so they can move between both worlds because it symbolizes them like kind of like they work in both shops. The family
Yeah.
has the mom in one shop
Yeah.
and the father in the other shop, and they can move back and forth,
Yeah.
which is really really interesting.
I like
commentary on that.
And that was a hot topic as well. Passing.
Very huge hot topic. The concept of passing, and the privileges and problems that it creates.
Yeah.
But now for the main character, music.
Oh, before we get to that, to the plantations thing, which is a good big point for this, is a comment made by Stack to Sammy saying, "Man, Chicago ain't nothing but Mississippi. This ain't another place with there's plantations." So basically saying that tall buildings that they're working in
Mississippi tall buildings.
it's Mississippi with tall buildings. Basically, it's plantations with tall buildings. Essentially, they're still slaves.
That was
So they still
interesting
need to
commentary.
escape,
Yeah, that was an interesting commentary.
which helps tie it to us. To today.
Exactly. Like, yeah, that's really good. That was cool. Yeah, I remember hearing that. And like, yeah, it's like this. The film is constantly like this argument that there's always these parallels being drawn
Yeah.
where you got like twin images throughout the film.
Yeah.
Chicago, Mississippi.
Yeah.
Stack, Smoke.
Yeah.
The church, the club.
Mm-hmm.
It's just everywhere. It's just
Mhm.
everywhere. Eternal life for the zombies and
Mhm.
eternal life of music.
Mm.
Right, the timelessness of music and the timelessness in terms of eternal life of a zombie.
Mhm.
Dark and light.
Mhm.
Right. And the dichotomy in all of it's like there's like this whole argument about balance.
Yeah.
And I think there's a few things one could take from that, which is like the film's kind of putting forward this argument that like, what is evil? Evil is that which causes disbalance,
Mm.
And we see that in the sense that when Smoke goes too much into his stoicism and Stack goes too much into his recklessness,
Mm.
chaos happens. But when they're playing off each other to each other's strengths, and that often happens in the godly good zone, right? Then we have harmony
Mm.
and peace. And it's kind of saying, and it almost like the film's kind of saying, like often people will probably tend to poke a finger at the red side
Yeah.
and poke a finger at the blue side, but they don't realize that the evil is not on the red or the blue. At least it's what the film's trying to say.
That's what the film's trying to say. Yeah.
But the evil's coming from something outside of red and blue that is trying to cause disruption in the unity.
Two truths and a lie.
Two truths and a lie, and that's it's quite an interesting thing. And that
So
go on.
Can I?
Yeah. Go.
To lead into what we're about to talk to the next topic.
Yeah, because music is the main
The
character.
music.
It is the main character, man.
At this train station. So basically,
Tell me, because I can't remember this part.
Stack and Sammy now go to recruit people to come to the club. So they've now got a player who is Sammy, who's got the guitar, and they know that he's been blessed with a good ability to play the guitar. They've established that straight away at the beginning of the
He's
film.
anointed.
He's anointed. That's what they say. He's anointed. Key. So they grab him.
I don't know if they say he's anointed, but they heavily implied he's got a god.
Heavily implied.
Yeah.
And like the father wants him to play in church, and he's got the guitar at the front of the church. Saying, let's use this for this. And Sam's like, nah, I want to do my own thing. So he takes the guitar, goes with Stack to the car, and they head back to they head to the train station to collect more people. And on their way to the station, there's foreshadowing where they stab a snake, but I don't want to get too much into that right now.
Oh yeah. And they crush his head.
They crush the head of the snake.
This is the other thing, guys.
Well,
if you read your Bible, this film just has so much more to offer. If you are tapped in, this film has so. I watched a commentary by someone else, and they said they wanted more people who are tapped into God's word to give some commentary on this. For this man, there's so much more there.
So they go to the station.
My days.
And at the station, they meet another character. This character, I can't remember his name, but I know he was played by Delroy Lindo.
What a legend!
Legend.
Give that man his flowers.
For sure.
Should have got an Oscar for Defy Bloods, but maybe this time around.
For real, man.
Maybe this time I can spin the block and give this back.
Hey, they better.
You know what I'm saying?
So Delroy Lindo's character is a harmonica blues player, or he's a, I don't know what, more than harmonica, he's like one of the...
He's a virtuoso.
He's a talent.
He plays a lot. He plays a lot of instruments.
And he's
a drunkard.
He's a drunkard and a known blues player. And he's playing at the station, as they would be. So he's playing for the passers-by, and they go to collect him. And when he sees Sammy, and Stack, Sammy's cousin, tells Sammy to play, and trying to convince Delroy Lindo's character that he can play, Delroy Lindo looks up from his harmonica, and he just laughs. Like, what does the little boy know about the blues? Now remember, Sammy's a preacher's boy. Sammy's from a church environment, but he has a love for the blues.
Mm-hmm.
Delroy Lindo's character, from what we can see, it looks like his hands are rough. He's grown up in struggle. He's grown up in the plantation, but we don't know if he's grown up in the church. But we know he's a legendary blues player.
He was on a chain gang.
He was on a chain gang. That's what.
Yeah, we
this
do
is why
know
you
that.
need someone else next to you. He was on a chain gang.
He was on a chain gang. We do get that.
Yes, they do mention that. I forgot all about that.
So he comes from a proper struggle.
And they bring up beautifully about what happened at the station.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lynching that happened at the station that they bring up.
Mm-hmm.
Part of
Oh, did it happen at the station? That's a good. I didn't know that's where it happened.
Yeah, it makes it dark. But then
that's why he's playing. He's playing.
So at this point, at this point, the religious character doesn't believe that Sammy can play. Then Sammy shows him he can play, and they start vibing. I'm gonna skip something, but now they're in the car. They see another chain gang. Delroy Lindo's character is fired up.
Oh yeah.
And then he starts telling the story about the lynching that happened at the station.
Yeah.
And it's as he's finishing the story, he starts grooving.
He breaks that into song, and that was powerful for me because that for me also spoke volumes about the angle that Coogler's coming at it from. That music is something. Music is you know what? I think as a Black Brit it hits, but I can only imagine the nerve it touches for our cousins across the pond. You know what I mean? Like I think for us, again, I think I said this when we had a normal conversation. We are not as removed from our ancestral roots, right? Whereas for these men, you're going generations on generations on generations to the point where that's why you can say they have developed their own whole culture. Not to say we don't have our own culture here in the diaspora. You know what I'm saying?
Black British is its own thing.
Yeah, exactly. But like, it's a different thing, man. It's a different thing over there, and I think. I would definitely say on the behalf of some Black Brits, we can be very arrogant. I know we've accused them of being the same thing, and they are sometimes when it comes on topics about Africa and native religions, they can be kind of ignorant. But I feel like we can also be just as equally ignorant about the diaspora experience, about the diaspora experience in America, and the role that music plays for them as opposed to what it does for us. For us, there's a lot more black and white drawing lines on certain things, because we didn't grow up to learn nuance.
Yeah.
We grew up to learn this is for you, this isn't for you. And I feel like for them it's a bit different. So that's reflected in the film
Yeah.
heavily, and then that scene, that's a really cool scene, like showing how pain, struggle
And
is processed
yeah.
through music.
And Stack says to Sammy, "You know what's in your hand, right?"
You know what to do?
Essentially saying, "Yeah, you know what to do." So then he starts
Let
playing.
your light shine.
And it's the moment, it's the environment. We can give the opportunity
To use his
to
gift.
use his gift.
And in that situation, I would, me being where my brain was, I'm like, yo, he's using his gift there to help someone else process pain or help him process. Like he's being shown how his gift can be used, and later on in the film, that kind of gets adulterated. But in that situation, you kind of see at least what Stack's aim. You can see there's like that scene kind of tells you what the intention. Where is it coming from?
Yeah.
Why do we want the club?
Yeah.
What's the purpose of the club? The club. I don't. They kind of communicate this idea that the club wasn't there for debauchery.
Yeah.
It was there to communicate hard, unspeakable things that people have gone through, and that they need to let loose. And in the film, they kind of paint the church as being this place where of purity and goodness, but only capturing half the human experience.
Yeah.
And so when he's in the car and they're talking about these real life stories about pain, the blues becomes this other side of the puzzle, the other side to things that allows him to process pain in another way. And the film kind of presents both things as being equally as important, but you gotta manage how they're done.
And interestingly, though, in the club, it seems like they're letting loose and they're letting go.
Yeah, but they don't really truly.
They don't truly let go. In fact, they're inviting more trauma. Interestingly, but then when they get to it's funny how they juxtapose this. In the scene in the church, the very final scene in the church, when he's going to let go of the guitar, and his dad is telling him, "Do you denounce basically his actions, what he's been doing, and it basically try to encourage him, let go of that past trauma that you've just been through, like let go of it, please, for the sake of us, everybody."
I didn't read it that way. That's interesting.
That's why I saw it.
That's interesting.
And it's interesting that he's to truly let go of the trauma, he had to go back to where to origin. Because where he went to originally to let go of the trauma, if he just invited
to rewrite the story.
I wasn't even gonna go there.
Oh, fair enough.
I don't know.
Because he goes back
to that one, but
because he goes back to the club and then he has you see him older and it's
okay,
no longer that place. It's no longer a traumatic place to be. But interestingly,
and do you see what the color change they do as well with that?
it's blue inside the club.
It's blue. They did something there. That was definitely intentional.
And then the end shot is him at church. That's why it's blue in the club.
It's because there's been a change.
Because the blue's the light.
So when the music plays,
yeah. So we're doing. All right, forgive us. We're doing gymnastics in our heads.
Yeah, we're doing
bro.
gymnastics.
Hold on. Stack is the moral code. Is the stereotypical moral compass.
Stack. He's red.
Smoke. Blue.
Smoke's blue.
Yeah. Interestingly, so there's a part in the club. We're on the music part anyway.
Yeah.
Where Smoke is like, bro, take your talents back to church. You don't need all of this. We are only here processing our pain like this because we don't have that leg up you already do into the church, into that purity space. You're out here trying to get dirty. We're out here trying to get clean.
Yeah.
But then and this is the part that we had a great conversation and we can relate to as pastors' kids, right?
Yeah.
Right. Often you go through things, and you recognize that there's music or art that helps you process that pain. The people that are using that genre to process their pain as well, often they've gone through sometimes grimier situations, and they're looking at you like, why would you even come here? And you're like, well, I'm here not just to process my stuff, but I've got something to give you. And sometimes you were not conscious that's why perhaps even God lets us into those scenarios, right?
But temptation.
Yeah, exactly. So hold on. Let me steady on. Like, I'll spare British. Steady on.
Like 20.
Right. So sometimes I'll speak for myself. I know that sometimes I've been like, oh, this has helped me process this. Lion King.
Yeah.
Kendrick. Narnia. Oh.
Yeah.
Right. All these things, right? but I'm also hyper aware that I'm not in the exact same place as the people that have made their spaces for me to process my pain.
Yeah.
Right. And I know that depending on how I navigate that space, I'm going to either fall into temptations that came with the people that made that space, or I'm going to be a light in the darkness. Now, that might sound like a lot of talk for nothing, but I promise you, just really think about it.
Yeah,
really think about it.
Come on.
Really, really think about it, though. Because in the film, and this is really interesting, Smoke tells him, leave this place, bro, and go play somewhere better. Now, he has a conversation with Preacher Boy after there's like a really rousing, emotionally charged scene, right? That opens up a spiritual portal, essentially attracting the darkness and illuminating the light. Kind of in the film, it shows two things happening at the same time. And I'll be honest, in my opinion, that kind of represents how, in the same way, that when you are trying to do God's work, the devil sits up. And he starts going, let me see. You know, when people say, like, some pastors go, the devil's not bothering you, you can't be doing something right.
Yeah.
The film kind of shows it like that. That's how the film presents their thing, right? Yeah. And then what happens after that happens, Smoke goes, it's like Smoke senses it and he goes, you've alerted you are dancing. From here on out, if you weren't doing it before, you're about to dance with the devil.
Yeah.
Right? Go home. You came, you did your thing, go home. And then that's when...
And the environment becomes more and more carnal.
Yeah.
Lust. And more carnal.
Lust is the other huge theme in this show. And the reason why it's a huge theme is because, for those that don't know, there's monster lore. Vampires are often closely intertwined with lust. I studied Dracula when I was in A-level, and I remember that was one of the things that we heavily went over.
Yeah.
So that was just, for me, that's really, really interesting. That after he has that conversation with him, he then falls into lust.
And his arrogance. So Samuel's arrogance
pride.
in that conversation is saying, nah, I ain't going nowhere. I want to make money here. I want to be famous here. I can
overcome any temptation.
I can overcome that.
And what's the opening verse in the film? The opening verse that the pastor uses. He says, "For you have not been put into any temptation that you cannot bear, and God always makes a way of escape." Which becomes evident because he does escape, but just by the skin of his teeth. Like, you know what I'm saying? By the skin of his teeth.
Damage was taken.
Damage, severe damage. Like, but it's interesting, isn't it? After that,
pride. So
pride first.
There's pride. There's lust, and
then the fall.
And then there's also anger. But before we get to that, I want to talk a bit more about the music thing.
Go.
So there's a scene, and it's probably gonna go viral over TikTok and Twitter and everything.
Yeah, it's a powerful scene
where they show him singing his blues, and people are like, they move into it, and then as they're moving, you start to hear.
And he's talking about it as well. Let's double down on something.
Yeah.
He does what the whole part of the blues, historically speaking, is people talking about their pain or talking about day-to-day life.
Yeah.
So he starts singing about something that presumably, that's a whole other thing. Let me not override it. You say what you're gonna say. Something just got highlighted to me there.
But so
that's crazy.
As he's singing his truth, it's the blues there's a famous synergy that it has with mediums and spirits and channeling. And there's rumors and that going around about some famous blues artists that channel spirits. Off the top of my head, I don't want to make a mistake and say the wrong names, so I'm not. I
don't know the name, but I do know that it was basically the idea is that one of the pioneers,
the crossroads
of the blues came to a crossroads, either in a vision or a real life.
Yeah,
made a deal with the devil, essentially got to sing better and moved on. Now in Coogler's retelling, when he did some research on it, he said he wasn't in as he and this is important actually to know what he does not understand that to be the devil so much as he understood it to be a deity. Now, I, as a Christian man, I'm of the belief that in the Bible it says, listen, when you see loved ones, when people tell of you that loved ones are coming back from the grave, and when people say things like, I'm communing
with
spirits past, that is not something that God provides. That is something that the devil provides to provide us false comfort. The Bible does speak of legacy, so I believe in legacy. I don't believe in communion with their spirits. And the thing with the devil and God, the dividing line is very subtle.
Yeah.
And this film actually shows that.
It shows that
it does a really good job of showing that, in spite of
Like
his
if
own
you,
imagery.
if you don't have discernment, you won't know.
Yeah.
And discernment will tell you that you shouldn't be playing in that club. But anyway, so he's playing at the club, and as he's playing,
Or at least shouldn't be playing. I don't know if I would go that far.
you shouldn't be.
I wouldn't know if I'd go that far.
Don't think you can resist the devil without God.
Yeah.
To
To not be arrogant. I say it's
Don't be arrogant.
spiritual arrogance. Because I was gonna say, in my new analysis, I wouldn't say him being in the club was the issue.
It wasn't being there. It was
It was his
purpose.
attitude being in there.
his attitude and his purpose being.
He
there.
came in there thinking he could override. He came in there underestimating the spirits.
Yeah,
There.
that's it.
That's it.
So then he actually starts channeling,
That's
and
it.
as he's channeling,
And not just him, the whole audience. No one came
yeah.
ready to interact with those things.
So I was seeing, we start seeing in the audience that different cultures are starting to appear. We start seeing, it starts showing like disc jockeying, DJs, and we start seeing there's different eras appearing. Not just from black culture, ancestors,
We see ancestors
and
from
future
past and ancestors and descendants
descendants. Yeah,
from all walks of all the cultures that are in that room.
and so yeah, all the cultures. So bear in mind, it's not just black people that's in that room.
Asian.
All the cultures,
Yeah.
right? There's cultures. But then as they're showing these different cultures, and then we even see some masquerade there as well, and it's really interesting, and that they show this time mix, this culture mix. But then it starts to show, the camera starts to expand and zoom out, and then we see that the walls, the roof is
On
displayed.
fire.
The roof's on fire.
Which is also a
And
bit
the walls
more
are
because
displayed
that's
as
a hip hop
well.
thing. The roof is on fire.
The roof is on fire. Yeah.
That's literally what we.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's somebody watching them through the fire.
Vampire has become alerted to the presence of the boy because of the boy singing.
Yeah.
And it's at this point that again, man, people that are in the world will know the power of music. Lucifer, who used to be an angel of light, was the chief musician in heaven.
That's what they say.
And we learned that because he was that, one of the chief ways he would lead away God's people is through music, which is powerful, by the way, because one of the main ways to God is also through music. The longest book in the Bible is a book of songs and poetry. Really deep that for a minute. Psalms.
One of my ways to learn about God, not to God, but to learn about God.
What do you mean?
What do you mean by to God? I should explain. I should ask that first.
Yeah, you should have.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I think music is a higher form of communication sometimes than words alone.
Interesting.
That's my opinion, though, and it completely depends. Like it doesn't. It's the same that's because of the power of it, and it's that and evidence that it's powerful is that is why the devil tries to use it against. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's a different frequency,
Yeah.
and that's that's scientifically speaking, not spiritually speaking. Like scientific, like music kills flowers.
Yeah.
Like the music's a powerful thing, and so I think one of the coolest things. Sorry, you finished what you were saying before.
I have, because I'm ready for the next part.
Bless. Okay, what I was going to point out was, it's really interesting that in the let's say call it the winner shot of the film, like the main shot, everyone is moving or suspecting of the forces that they have invited, or at least put on alert.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that scene, and I was thinking about how even in church, like I remember I've been in churches before, yeah, where people are getting like when we're praising God, and people can get into a trance, or people get into a frenzy. Sometimes get worked in when people get worked into a frenzy, and it made me think about something that me and Shalaka, we have both spoken about before, and that's the way that we are the conscious use of music as opposed to the passive use of it.
Yeah.
So being a conscious, purposeful engager with music, so that you manipulate it, so that you use it and it does not use you. Does that make sense? So you make it a conduit of God's will through you, as opposed to it using you. Yeah. As opposed to music using you as a conduit.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something that in my opinion, that's just a new takeaway I'm having right now as we're talking about it in the film. Is that's the only thing that really changes. Is that after the experience, Preacher Boy takes ownership, and now he's in control.
He uses it for healing.
And he uses it for healing, even in the darkness. Whereas before, he was slave to it, to his art, and so his art wherever people wanted his art, he went and did their bidding.
Yeah.
And literally, the main villain, who's kind of like the devil figure, wants him for his art.
Yeah.
And wants to take it from him. And down to the part that when it's a spoiler for, we can talk about this. Part of killing the devil, he uses that same guitar, crack bro on the side of the head, and he doesn't. I don't think he even realizes in the moment that that's helping him. So bro reverts to reciting the Lord's Prayer, not knowing that the devil knows the Bible too. But it's your conviction and the way that you use what's in your arsenal that will save you, not your conviction.
God will save you.
God
will save you. And in the end,
God.
Because it's the character that's almost like the God character.
Yeah.
His pivot, his compass.
Kills
smoke
temptation.
comes and kills it.
Yeah. Kills
the
devil at the heart.
The devil character, at the heart.
Literally.
It's interesting what they used.
Very interesting. Which speaks to real life. Before we move on to the next thing,
I think we should pause there.
Yeah.
And then get to the next chapters.
Yeah, guys. Yeah, it gets the rabbit hole goes deeper. I can go further. I promise. 5 + 5. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.